Hey, good morning. It's nice to be here. I'm so excited. I wish I was standing in the room with you. When I was asked if I would be able to do this presentation, of course I said yes, I would love to go to Singapore in September. But as a family of global nomads, you realize sometimes what you say you can do actually becomes a little bit harder. Right now I'm in Toronto helping my son get set up and enrolled and involved in the University of Toronto as a freshman. So that's exciting. My husband is on his way to Borneo, where we will continue working in Southeast Asia, and our stuff is somewhere between Thailand and Borneo. So we are truly a family in transition right now. You know, as a school counselor, we often study many different topics, and I was lucky enough to be part of a research study that we called Full Speed Ahead, going from one international assignment to the next international assignment. But we also decided to look at the benefits and the pitfalls of going back to your own passport country between assignments. So I was very, very lucky because the overall purpose of my survey was to investigate the attitudes people have about their relocation, and I wanted to try to identify any barriers or anything that helped facilitate a better relocation. Of course, it was all voluntary, and I just went around off the internet asking a group of global nomads what they thought about um, their responses of number of times they've moved, places they have lived, what was the biggest benefit for your family, and what was the best reason for coming back online. It was very, very interesting survey. I had 298 responses. So it's a very small survey, but it does have some good information. And then I was very, very lucky because I did face-to-face interviews with 22 adults and 50 children. And you will be hearing some of the interviews that I have conducted about how these kids feel as they move around the world.
Um, I just, I've learned that it's a good thing to do this. It may not be the easiest way to live, but I really feel that I've benefited from it, and I wouldn't change the way I've lived for another lifestyle.
Most of the people in my circle of influence have about an average of 4 moves under their belt, or that's about 20% of my survey. Then it seemed like the next group, the 15%, they said that they had either 6 or 8 moves under their belt. If this is your first overseas assignment, all I can say is power up because some people have had 10 or more moves. These are what I call the real global nomads of my world. I myself have only survived 8 international moves and of course a few domestic moves in the US. And I'm hoping there's many more international moves coming up my way soon. I think the most interesting thing about these families that are in global transitions and the kids that you will be working with, for many of them, they really do not know where home is because they've had multiple homes. They've been multiply successful in different locations and different environments. So we really do need to be aware of how we approach some things that are kind of standard teaching practice, like what culture are you? Where do you come from? These are really hard questions for these little global nomads. When I asked them what was the biggest benefit for you or your family moving from one international assignment to the next international assignment, it was really interesting. The biggest benefit I kept hearing about over and over again was understanding different cultures. Second was travel, and many people said more family time. One reoccurring theme was staying within the international family. This meant that the friends that they had made overseas were often friends for life, and they could even be a stronger bond than some of their extended families. When I asked them what was the second best reason for these back-to-back international assignments, travel came out again and again and again. but also that the kids are used to this international travel and international lifestyle, so they're used to the expectations and also the challenges, so they tend to thrive. They talked about the educational advantages and the enjoyment for the kids about being able to be in such top-notch schools. They also talked about the benefits of having more money and the actual fact that you get a lot more benefits, as well as living in the other cultures really seems to open up your mind and open up the mind of your children. I help families that move around the world and companies that have global employees thrive. And I do this by showing them how to build emotional resilience. Therefore, I had to actually find out what the biggest concerns were about doing these back-to-back international assignments. Number one concern was always being away from the family. Sometimes there were safety concerns and even health concerns. One of the things that surprised me was when they talked about the bad attitude of other expats. And then, of course, many of the parents talked about the positive impact that this might have on their families, but also they were worried about the possible negative effects that this could have with all the moving on their family. And they really wanted to find out about the we don't really belong anywhere attitude for their kids. We just had a lot of information, so I'm going to ask you to breathe, smile, and look at a few of my little tweets that I found from Honest Toddler. Just take a breath or two. Now we're going to talk a little bit about what it would be like if these people were sent home between each international assignment and what would be the benefit of this. Number one thing that kept coming up was time with family. Also being able to feel more a part of a community. But one of the things that was interesting was to establish a state residency so perhaps their child could get in-state tuition when attending college. When asked about what would be the biggest problem about going home between international assignments, readjustments coming again and again, one of the things that came up is we're different, so a readjustment at home will also be a readjustment. Some of the people were really concerned because they were from the US, and they said a US adjustment might be more difficult than another international move. They thought it might be difficult to get the kids to move again internationally. And then one of the concerns that came up that I thought was really interesting, there was a concern that you would really realize what you're missing out on, so the next assignment would seem like a loss. We are all experts, but we really need to look at things from a different perspective sometime. When I was gathering this information, I told them I would be taking this information to internationally mobile families, corporate people, military, diplomatic, missionary, and I also wanted to take it to human resource personnel, relocation experts, educators, and counselors. And so I asked them, what additional information should we know about relocating families? Number one thing, please consider the needs of the academically able children and the academically or behavioral challenged children. Many overseas schools are not staffed to offer the resources for highly capable or remedial students. It takes almost a full year to get the new international assignment and help these children remake their identity. Also, it was very important for families to be able to have expats take responsibility for their own peace and satisfaction. Do not depend on the company or the government or the institution to do everything for them. You must adapt yourself to the situation. While every family deals with it in its own way, they should be urged to approach everything in a positive attitude. Too much time is wasted in moaning and whining about what they're missing, and they miss out on making the most of their new home country. You just never know from one relocation to the next how your children are going to react.